Okay, we are live now and just going to wait for a few seconds or a couple of minutes for all our friends to come in. I hope that everyone's having a good Sunday. I'm just going to take a moment to quickly share our video with all our friends on the groups and across all platforms. Okay, so I think people are going to slowly start streaming in once they get notified of our live. But in the meanwhile, for all our friends who are joining in, leave us a comment and say hi and tell us if you can see us and hear us clearly and tell us where you're joining in from. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you hope to learn from this workshop today. And we're going to start in just a few minutes. Okay, I can see Parul has come in. Hi, Parul, how are you? And I've now successfully shared our video across all of our groups and everywhere so that all of you guys can come in. Hi, good to see you. Hi, Snehal. All right, we seem to be a women's team so far in the audience and on the workshop both. That's always fun. Okay, so I think it's a good time to start. Hi, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to another Blue Circle workshop. Today, I'm going to be chatting with a lovely lady called Nairi, and I'll request her in a moment to introduce herself as well. But she's an incredible professional. She's a coach, and she's someone who's been living with type 1 diabetes for a long time. Today, we are going to be talking about fasting and diabetes. So, whether you have type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, or any other type of diabetes, and if you want to fast for any reason, whether you just want to fast, or whether you want to practice intermittent fasting, whether you want to fast for religious reasons, whatever be the reason, if you want to fast safely with diabetes, this is the workshop that you should be listening to. And just a quick reminder for all our friends, and if someone's joining for the first time, Blue Circle workshops are run by and for people that live with diabetes. So if there's anything you want us to cover, please let us know in the comments section and we'll pick up the topic for the future. So with that, I'd like to request Nairi to introduce herself.
Thank you for inviting me, Nupur. This is an honor. It's an honor to be part of what you are doing at Blue Circle Diabetes Foundation. So I'm Nayiri, and you said my name beautifully, by the way.
Wow.
So I'm Nayiri musician. I've been living with type 1 diabetes since I was 5, so that's 47 years of type 1. for me now. I'm 52. Um, I'm a health coach, so I'm a certified nutrition advisor with the Nutrition Network, and also an accredited metabolic health practitioner with the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners based in the US. I've been health coaching for 4 years now. Um, some of my clients, not all, are diabetic, and that includes type 2 diabetics and type 1. And type 1s mainly come because they want to change their diet and learn how to properly use insulin to manage their blood sugars. And of course, type 2 diabetics are now becoming increasingly more aware that it is a disease that can be put into remission. And so they come with that high hope that I can help them do that. Of course, some of my clients don't have diabetes at all. They just want to come to improve their metabolic health, reverse their hypertension, and just optimize their health. So this is what I do.
That's incredible. And, I would have never guessed the duration of your diabetes, and that you've had it for so long. I, of course, know, because Nairi very kindly invited me, to her podcast as well. And that's something you guys should also check out. Please check out her channel. It's called Low Carb and Fasting. And she's got some amazing chats that she does with incredible people from around the world. So, it's lovely to know about you, Nairi, and I'm just curious what your name means before we dive into the workshop.
Okay, so Nairi, actually interesting. And so Nairi is a very ancient Armenian name. And for people who haven't heard of Armenians, again, very ancient civilization. It goes back, I mean, as ancient as generally, the Indian population. Armenian language actually is a branch of the Indo-European languages, and so you can kind of find similarities between I don't know which dialect, but between, let me, forgive me if I just say Indian as a general kind of language, but yeah, and Armenian. So lots of words are very like paneer, right? Your famous protein source. Paneer is exactly the same in Armenian language. It's paneer.
Wow.
So it's so many similarities, which actually fascinate me because my background is linguistics, or was, is my background is linguistics, and I have a translation company as well. So languages always fascinate me, and the origin of languages. But so Nairi means the land of fire, apparently, because it comes from Nar or Nur, which
Wow.
in Farsi, in Arabic, and all those other languages means light or fire. So land of fire, apparently Armenia used to be called land of fire, and that's where it comes from.
Wow, thank you for that, very quick introduction into, how both the cultures are so similar, and, also about yourself and the meaning behind your beautiful name. And I can see Krishnan, his comment that we have a lot of Armenian landmarks in India. That's incredible. I didn't know that, but it's wonderful to know. And welcome everyone. I can see comments coming into the chat box as well. So, we're going to dive straight in, and over the next, 40, 50 minutes before we start wrapping up at the end of the hour, Nairi, I'd like to begin by asking you, is it safe for people with diabetes to fast? Because that's one question that people seem to ask a lot.
Okay, so let me start with non-diabetics.
Yeah.
If you don't have diabetes and you are not taking any medications, sure, you can fast. I mean, it's a myth that, women can't fast, or someone above the age of 30 shouldn't fast. And, if you're obviously, if you're not eating enough food, fasting isn't for you. Why would you fast? Or if you don't have, you're not trying to perhaps, um, you're not undergoing cancer therapy because it's very therapeutic if you're undergoing chemotherapy, for example. If you use fasting as an adjunct intervention, it has tremendous therapeutic impact on your health. So, I mean, look, pretty much anyone can fast if the context is right. Now, when it comes to diabetes, I don't know any person with diabetes who's not taking medication.
Right.
If you are a type 2 diabetic who successfully adopted a low carbohydrate diet through which you have been able to come off your medications, then that's great. You are in the minority. But if you are a type 1 or type 2 diabetic on medication or insulin treatment or insulin therapy, you should only do fasting if you know what you're doing or if you have the support of your physician. Because if you are taking insulin, your insulin dosage will need to be reduced. I mean, if you're not eating, you don't go ahead and take your insulin or your lunchtime insulin and then decide, oh, I've just injected 10 units of insulin, but I'm not going to eat. I mean, you know how problematic that will be for a type 1. And type 2 diabetics who are even not on insulin, but on pills, right? Blood sugar reducing pills, and they come in under different categories. But whichever one you are taking, its goal is to reduce your blood sugar. But if you're not eating, you probably will not have high blood sugar anyway, right? So reducing it even further with medication could lead to trouble. So you need to tell your physician, this is what I am going to do. I need your support. I need you to give me a guideline of how to monitor my blood sugars and how to reduce my dosage. I need your support. You need to tell your physician. I mean, they have to support you, right? If you've decided you're doing something,
Yeah.
It's their job to support you. Fortunately, because I am in this health space and I was a researcher, I'm still a researcher, so I'm researching and reading, working towards a book, it gives me incentive to actually learn more and more. Because I am in this space, I was able to do fasting as a type 1 diabetic without the support of anyone, because I knew what to do. I knew how to keep myself safe.
Yeah.
And I knew it could be done. So again, I mean, so one worry is about, fasting with diabetes is hypoglycemia, which is when your blood sugars go really low.
Yeah.
Again, you can prevent that by reducing, if you are type 2 diabetic, obviously reducing your pills, whichever ones you're on. If you are on insulin, again, by reducing your insulin dosage. Okay? That can prevent hypoglycemia from happening. If you are closely monitoring your blood sugars and you've already reduced your insulin and you are going to go maybe on an 18-hour fast, which really isn't that tough a thing, right? Which 18-hour fast basically means skipping one meal. Instead of having 3 meals a day, you're having 2 meals a day. That could be 18 hours, including your nighttime sleep time. So that could be 18 to 20 hours. Skip one meal. If you've already reduced your insulin and you still notice that your blood sugar is dropping low, and this is important for people to know because it's a question that comes up regularly. If your blood sugar is dropping low, take Glucose tablet. Now, I'm sure you have the equivalent of glucose tablets there in India. It may not be the same brand, but we're looking at dextrose, which is really fast absorbing glucose. Here we go. Here's a quarter that I've, because I usually kind of take small doses, but one whole tablet contains 4 grams of sugar. So, depending on how low you are, just take glucose to bring your blood sugar back to normal. Does that break the fast? Does that mean you go, heck, I'm dropping low, I already took glucose, I ruined my fast, it's all or nothing for me, so I'm just going to go and have a meal instead? No, that does not break a fast. Do you know why? Because in a non-diabetic person, the liver would do that anyway.
Yeah.
In a non-diabetic person, there is continuous supply of glucose, if you like, from the liver. So that's why their blood sugar probably will never go into hypoglycemic levels. And even if it does, they know that their own body, because it's a fully functioning system, will save them anyway. So again, taking a glucose tablet, not to shoot your blood sugars right up, but to bring them back up to normal level,
Correct.
is part of the normal process. That does not break your fast. However, if you go ahead and drink 3 glasses of orange juice, followed by a whole sandwich, then yes, obviously you're going to rise so high that now you're going to need insulin to bring your blood sugars back down again. And yes, have you broken your fast? Definitely you've broken your fast. But if you're just taking glucose to treat your low blood sugar and bring it to normal level, not high, but just enough so your blood sugar rises to normal level, then no, you have not broken your fast. Keep on fasting until your next meal.
That is super helpful, because a lot of people feel, I think you hit the nail on the head, Nairi, when you said that, either I have to do it properly or else I don't do it at all. You can't have that kind of approach when you're somebody who's taking insulin or any kind of, blood sugar lowering medication. Things happen. It's all right. And if you do get a hypo, just pop in some glucose. And Nairi just showed us her glucose tablet there that she's cut into a quarter, I think you said. And unfortunately my glucose is out of reach. I wanted to keep it next to me, but I've put it into the comment box. What's available for us in India is called Glucovita, and it's available on Amazon and in local shops. And each glucose tablet has 2 grams of carbohydrate. So you can then adjust, you can take half or you can take a couple of them depending on what your sensitivity is and what your blood sugar is. But I think we're off to a great start, and there was so many things that Nairi already covered, and she told us about who can do fasting. The fact that it's not really tough if you consider in an 18-hour fast you're actually even counting the hours of sleeping. So it's really, really smooth. And I want to take this opportunity to quickly share my experience with intermittent fasting that I've been doing since several years now. So what started out, Nairi, for me, the reason I started out was because, I was like, well, who's going to go to the kitchen multiple times a day? It just makes my life easy if I eat 2 times a day. And if I'm not hungry, why should I force myself to eat? So this is what led me to start skipping breakfast. And I love my breakfast. So what I do is I have breakfast at lunchtime, you know, early dinner, and then the next day I have breakfast at lunchtime. But what was like, when you fast, what's your reason? Why did you kind of get into fasting?
So up until my 20s, I used to have 3 set meals. I don't come from a snacking culture, but we always had 3 set meals at home, like as a family, right? Sit around the table, you have your breakfast, then there's lunch, and then there's dinner. Um, and also because that was how I grew up, but also because we used to take set doses of insulin. In fact, it was probably 2 doses in the day, and that was supposed to cover your meals and everything. So you had to eat at certain times throughout the day.
Right.
And then when rapid insulin came about, like Novolog or Novorapid, and we learned about insulin adjustment based on what you're eating, like carbohydrate counting and adjusting your insulin. So I was in my 20s. I had just come to the UK to study.
Yeah.
And that's how I've been in the UK for over 25 years now. But so I was in the UK and I was learning about how to adjust my insulin based on what I was eating. And I noticed that in the mornings, I was not hungry at all. At all. In fact, I would feel slightly like nauseous in the mornings. And the last thing, like even oversensitive to smell. I'm not someone who's sensitive to smells. I couldn't tell the difference of what you're cooking in the kitchen if I'm
Yeah.
not there actually seeing the food. Like I really am not generally sensitive to smells, but that in that morning time, I just felt so nauseous, like completely not wanting to eat. And I decided, well, if we can adjust insulin to the carbohydrate level of what we're eating, because that's what we were taught, then surely I can just eliminate my morning insulin and not eat.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember, so I always tell my friends, it was the year 2000, and no one was talking about intermittent fasting back then. It wasn't something anyone had ever mentioned to me. But I thought, well, if I can adjust my insulin, I can maybe just not take my morning insulin and not eat. And I started feeling so much better. I used to sit in my car and drive to school to teach
Yeah.
and just completely fasted. And then at lunchtime, I'd sit down and have my food. And then, of course, I would take my insulin to cover the lunch. And it worked beautifully for me. It worked really beautifully. The only thing I did was not taking, if I wasn't eating breakfast, morning meal, not taking my morning meal insulin. It worked really beautifully, but I always joke to my friends in the poor, and I always laugh when I put it this way, that the last time I had a morning meal, like a breakfast,
Yeah.
was in the year 1999. So
Oh my
since
God.
2000, yeah, the last millennium, right? So
Wow.
since 2000, I haven't had a morning meal and I'm happy. In fact, I'm fasted in the morning. So I go and do resistance training. I work out in the gym,
Yeah.
uh, completely fasted. It works beautifully for me. So there is nothing worse than force feeding yourself. Um, because this is how I would feel. I'm not hungry in the mornings. However, by all means, if someone is feeling that hunger and need for food, then just maybe you should eat in the morning, and there's nothing wrong with it. And if you really need to do fasting, maybe you can skip your nighttime meal.
Yeah. That is an excellent idea. So I'm curious, our friends who are watching, has anyone tried fasting? Have you had to skip a meal someday because you're traveling? Or what have your experiences been? Do you have any questions for Nairi? Do you have any opinions or thoughts that you want to share? Um, and also, have your doctors, if you ever spoke to your healthcare professional about fasting, what was their reaction? Did they say, okay, go ahead, let's do this? Or did somebody say, don't do it, it's not safe? Because we see a lot of your messages, all our friends here sometimes, putting out messages that my doctor said don't fast, and it's something that scares you when you're worried about it. But as you've been hearing now, fasting is something you can definitely do. And if you're not sure, you should definitely talk to somebody, get some help, seek help for sure. But it's not something that people with diabetes can't do.
Krishnan is asking about my resistance exercises.
Yeah.
Uh, shall I go ahead and answer that?
Yeah, yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. So, I was so I don't, one thing I really dread is growing up into a sick older person and frail older person. Because if you are frail, you're going to be breaking your bones, you know,
Yeah.
every knock somewhere, like ge- walking up the stairs. It's you're fragile. If you're frail, you're fragile. So I really dread becoming a burden on my beautiful daughter in the future. I want to grow old gracefully, but I want to grow old um, and still remain as healthy as I possibly can so that I am not a burden on my family and especially on my daughter. Of course, in our culture, right, and mine is very similar to yours, we
Yeah.
look at it as their duty to look after me. And I have no doubt that my daughter, who's only 20 now, she will one day need to help me out. But I don't want to bring it on to her. So it doesn't take tremendous amount of sacrifice to actually keep yourself healthy. Do some workout. Keep yourself active. Eat healthy foods which are blood sugar friendly. Um, maximize your nutrition. Focus on nutrition. Are you nourishing your body by eating that, I don't know, dessert or sugar covered whatever sweets that may be, right? Focus on nutrition, stay healthy, stay active. So that is my motivation for resistance training. So when I go to the gym, in fact, I was 48 when I
Yeah.
first started going to the gym because I
Wow.
noticed that with perimenopause, well, not early, but I noticed early signs of perimenopause when I was 48 with frozen shoulders.
Yeah.
Now I know it wasn't diabetes related. It was related to perimenopause, declining estrogen numbers. I know you covered perimenopause was a couple of weeks ago, and I enjoyed watching. That was a brilliant episode. Um, so, so I realized I had to go and work out because prior to that, I didn't really need. I didn't see. Myself as going to the gym. It was something other people did, not me, right? Um, uh, Besides, we have this kind of idea that, oh, going to the gym is going to take my femininity away and I'm just suddenly going to become like a massive bodybuilder,
Yeah.
which people doesn't happen unless you are working towards becoming a bodybuilder and using external interventions as well, which I don't want to go into. But
Yeah.
honestly, you are not going to become a bodybuilder. So just go and work out. What I do is I rotate, like I work on my upper body, shoulder strength, rotation, weightlifting, bench pressing. I have my dear husband helping me because he's an expert. He's a retired coach, so I know what I'm doing. I trust him, and we work out together. Yeah, it's different. It doesn't have to be long. It used to be longer before, but now I'm 52, and I noticed that most of my energy expenditure, if I expend it at the gym,
Yeah.
then I'm too tired the rest of the day. And I don't want to bring that because I'm at a certain stage in life where I honestly want to prioritize. If I have a limited amount of, if I have a set amount of energy, I want to prioritize on what I spend on. Exercise is only one part of it. I don't want the gym workout to take so much out of me that I'm just doing nothing else the rest of the day. So 15, 20 minutes of just general exercises to keep joints flexible, to keep, arms, legs strong, to work on core body, because you need to have a strong pelvic system and strong back, to keep yourself upright for as long as you can. These are important things. That's my motivation. I don't want to be a burden on anyone else.
Love it, love it. And I love the way, you explained it in such a practical way that it's not that we want to become a bodybuilder, right? We are regular people. We just want to be healthy, like you said, not want to be a burden on the family members. We want to be, when we get to the age of 70, 80, 100, we don't want to struggle to do basic tasks. So exercise is really, like Nairi beautifully explained it right now, it's not something just for young people or just for men or just for bodybuilders, it's for everyone. And resistance training is so important. Um, and the beauty is you can do it wonderfully even if you're fasting. So just like Nairi, I also, when I do manage to work out, I do work out in the morning. When I'm fasted, I find it very easy to manage exercise when I'm fasting. And in fact, if you have active insulin on board and you're exercising, that's a potential disaster there, because you can really, that insulin will hit you extra hard. And then, you will be treating a hypo in the gym, or, out jogging on the road. So really, really important. And it's very easy to do fasting and exercise together. And like Nairi mentioned, it's just a part of life. It's not like you have to exercise 4 hours in a day. So just do it. Get done with your quota for the day, and see how that goes. I see Snehal's message, and she says she never did fasting after her diagnosis, but she got a lot of pressure from her family and relatives to do fasting, which is interesting. So, Snehal, I have a question back for you. Did you then, when they pressurized you, did you ever try fasting after that, or did you just resist, or what was your thought process?
I'm going to interject here. I'm actually surprised that Snell, your family actually pressured you to actually do fasting, because it's usually the other way around. They go, "Oh, fasting? No, no, you shouldn't eat. Food is good for you. Eat." It's usually the other way around, right? Because
Very
you
true.
generally family members do not understand fasting, right? They go
Yeah,
eat. Oh, you're type 1 diabetic. You're taking insulin. Eat.
that's true. In fact, they used to tell us, eat 6 meals a day, eat 8 meals a day. That was crazy, right? Interesting. So, looking forward to, if anyone has any more comments or questions, keep putting them in the comment box, as you're already doing. So, we spoke about hypoglycemia, we spoke a bit about exercise, and, the need to adjust your doses. So, this question is for, related to people that are on insulin. And for those of us who are on insulin, a lot of us use bolus, which is the fast acting insulin, and basal, the long acting insulin. And I think fasting is something that makes you realize that if you haven't ever done basal testing in your life, now is a great chance to do it. So what's your thought on basal testing, and the need to have the correct basal amount?
I think this is a good topic to also take us to extended fasting, and we'll kind of go there, because so far we only covered like skipping one meal,
Yeah,
right? Or maybe two meals. So
yeah,
yeah, basal testing. Not many people realize how wrong their long-acting insulin dose is. So it's either too low and constantly they're running high. And then if you add more fuel on the fire, already high baseline blood sugars, if you eat something, then your blood sugar is shooting right up to 300. Do you use the same measurements as in the United States? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. This
So your blood sugars are going right up to 300, 350, because your baseline blood sugars are already high. And that's because your long acting insulin dose is probably too low. Or if you don't eat, you're constantly having lows,
Yeah.
right? And that means that your long acting insulin or basal insulin dose is too high. So if you are someone, and we often come across people like that who say, well, if I don't eat, I'm going to drop low. Or, oh, I need a snack. I absolutely need to have a snack between my meals, otherwise I drop low. There is no reason for you to be dropping low between meals when you
Yeah.
barely even digested. So between lunch and dinner, you barely digested, barely 4 hours have passed. There is no reason for you to be dropping low. Usually, not always, but usually that's because the basal dose is too high. That's why you're dropping low constantly. So what you're doing is you're eating constantly to feed your insulin, feeding the insulin, which really should be the other way around. You should be taking your insulin to feed your body basic kind of functions and your food, right? But you should not be taking insulin or high doses of it and then feeding the insulin. It's we should be doing that. So again, it's very important that you check that your basal insulin dose is absolutely correct and that it can hold you steady um, if you skip a meal or in
Yes.
between meals, right? So the easiest indication is when you will look at someone's overnight blood sugars. Because for good 8 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, 9, 10 for some people, unless they're having something right before they go to bed,
Yeah.
which not everybody, I know people who do it, right? Because we've been told to do it, but
Yeah.
not everyone does it. But so for most people, a good 10 hours of not eating through the night, maybe an hour before that, an hour after you wake up, if your blood sugars aren't steady, or in by steady, I don't necessarily mean a straight line,
Mhm.
right? But just in a steady and a kind of normal blood sugar range, if they're not holding on there in a normal tight range, then your basal probably needs adjusting. The easiest indication is your overnight sugars, right?
Yeah.
Because during daytime we might have physical activity because we're not just robots sitting at our desk and doing nothing, right? So physical activity may have an impact, food and bolus insulin may have an impact. These are variables which make it difficult to judge if your daytime kind of dose is basal dose is correct or not. But the overnight one is the first step. Look at your overnight sugars. There's no reason why we should be having a hypo through the night. Through the night, we're supposed to be staying steady until we wake up in the morning. So again, basal insulin adjustment is very, very important. And I think a lot of people are terrified of adjusting their basal dose.
That's true.
This is why I think, I'm very passionate about educating people because if you're just waiting to go and see your doctor once a year or once every 2 years, your basal insulin dose may even need adjusting every 3 months. Hey, if you are female, if you're menstruating, if you're in perimenopause, all that hormonal cycle will have an impact. You need to have the right knowledge and the confidence to actually adjust
Yeah.
your basal dose up or down independently, because it's not something that only needs to be done once every 5 years when you go and visit your doctor. It doesn't work like that. You need to be able to do that because that's key to success.
Absolutely agree. And it really, now that I think of it, I mean, I was in the same spot, maybe 10, 15 years ago, and I would not touch my basil too. But now that I think about it, it's so silly because we are told we can adjust our bolus. So why not the basil? Like you mentioned, that there are so many different types of situations that come up in one's life. It could be menopause, it could be, menstruation, it could be a child growing up and needing different amount of basil. So I think super important to have the right basil. And fasting is a brilliant way to figure out what your basal requirements are. Now we're going to jump into the question that Suresh is asking, Nairi, and he says, have you ever encountered nerve pain in the leg?
So nerve pain is your neuropathy, right? Neuropathy is damage in the nerves of the peripheral areas. So it could be your fingertips that you just feel like they're going numb and they start hurting. It could be your feet, your toes. So unfortunately, neuropathy is caused not by diabetes. I always want to correct people when they say it's caused by diabetes. It's caused by high blood sugars over a long period of time that have actually damaged your peripheral nerves. It's not diabetes because it's not a given, that it's not something that you definitely will have if you have diabetes down the line. I don't have it. 47 years of type 1 diabetes. I have no neuropathy. So is it reversible? Some people, when they adopt a low carbohydrate diet and they normalize their blood sugars, report back reduction of pain. It doesn't mean reversal. You haven't reversed your neuropathy. The damaged nerves aren't coming back to life. But if the pain improves, why wouldn't you work on your, on normalizing your blood sugars? Do anything and everything in your power to normalize, because that pain is torturous. From what I hear, people literally wake up crying at night. It's not something you want to be living with for 20-30 years. So normalize your blood sugars. Take as much insulin, if you are already on insulin, as your body needs to bring those blood sugars back down to normal. Change your diet. Remove the sugars, the starches, because honestly, they're not doing you any favors. What you can do, it's not all kind of doom and gloom, because what you can actually do by normalizing your blood sugars is you can stop the progression of your disease. So basically, whatever nerves are already damaged, fine, but you still have functioning, healthy, normal nerves.
Yeah.
Keep them normal. So you can stop the disease from progressing further. So there is hope in there. And if your pain also improves, then take charge of your health, my friend. Just do what it takes.
Yeah. Love it. So is there somebody who shouldn't do fasting? Nayiri, like is some? I'm just wondering if there's some sort of category of people that shouldn't fast. And before we get into that, I know my mom is also watching, and she says that the overnight blood sugars are a great sort of indicator of your basal dose being correct. So absolutely, for those of us on insulin, it's really important to get that basal right. And we've seen so many people actually over the years who keep their basal higher because they feel like it helps them snack throughout the day, and that's really dangerous, because what if you don't snack? What if you forget? What if you're on a what if you're traveling or busy or on a phone call, and then you're definitely going to go into a hypo. So it's very important to keep the right amount of basal going.
That's Hansa, right? Your mom?
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you,
right.
Hansa, for the comment. Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you're a growing child, you need food, you need nutrition. You're growing, your brain is still developing. So I wouldn't recommend fasting to a growing child, unless, of course, and I have, in fact, I have two children.
Yeah.
I coach, and both of them are type 2 diabetic.
Yeah.
And so they're overweight and type 2 diabetic. So we had kind of to, I didn't want them to fast, but I wanted them to cut the snacks in between. So just 3 set meals. So Again, I mean, fasting shouldn't be recommended to someone who's just growing in normal weight and normal health. Um, Also, I think fasting is not something you should do if you are not eating sufficient, if you're not taking in sufficient nutrients in your eating window. Say, if you're eating 2 meals a day, lunch and dinner, or breakfast and lunch, and then not eating anything after 2 or 3 p.m. Um, in those 2 meals, you actually should take in enough nutrients. I'm not talking about volume of food, because there's a difference between the volume of food and the nutrients it contains. Not all food is equal, right? But if you are having whole, unprocessed um, foods containing protein and some healthy fats, and you are eating enough of it in your 2 meals, then by all means, you can skip your third meal. At the moment, I'm doing 1 meal a day. Would I
Wow.
say that everyone should be doing it? No. In fact, now we're recording this at 12:30 here in the UK, and I had
Mhm.
my meal at 1 hour ago, so about 11:30, and that's all I'm going to eat. But it was a feast. It was a two
Yeah.
course feast, right? It contained enough protein to sustain me for the rest of the day. Um, and it contained enough healthy fats. And the second course, if you like, of my meal was some raspberries, which are very low glucose kind of fruits,
Mhm.
mixed in with yogurt. So that was kind
Wow.
of the dessert part, if you like. So, and that for me personally is
Yeah.
enough, because it gives me enough nutrients. I have many clients who just show me their plates, and I see tiny portions of food, and I go, "Are you limiting your food?" They go, "No, but I just cannot physically fit more than that in my body." Then I go, "You have 3 meals.
Yeah.
What? You can't be fasting, because fasting, the intention is not to starve your body of nutrients.
Correct.
You should still nourish your body. If you're not someone who can eat a good portion of nutritious foods in one sitting, then have 2 meals, 3 meals even. So again, I mean, if you're insulin resistant, and many type 1s, by the way, also have insulin resistance, right?
Correct.
Type 1s aren't necessarily your classic kind of skinny type people anymore. Is
Yeah.
the introduction of fast acting or rapid acting insulin. And since we've been told, hey, eat whatever you want and take as much insulin as you need, we're noticing many type 1s also develop insulin resistance. So type 1s also becoming classic type 2 diabetics. And um, so they're becoming resistant, not to the insulin that they're producing, but to the insulin that they are taking exogenously.
Yeah.
Um, that's double diabetes. It's actually now in the medical literature, double diabetes. So if you have that, if you have insulin resistance and type 1 diabetes, obviously you will benefit from fasting, because fasting will bring those insulin levels down, will give your body the chance to actually burn or use accumulated fat
Yeah.
as a source of energy. It's a great intervention for that kind of person, right?
Exactly. And I think what you just said about double diabetes is unfortunately it's so true now. Every very very common for type 1 diabetics to also display the signs of type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, and being overweight or using a huge amount of insulin, maybe 100 units, 150 units. So those are some signs that you may have double diabetes, and your healthcare professional might put you on metformin. But fasting is a great option, really. And like Nairi mentioned earlier, as long as you're not starving and you're not, eating very tiny portions of food, If you're able to get in all your nutrients, eat enough protein, you simply won't feel that hungry. A lot of people say, how do you eat 2 meals or 1 meal? Or this is something that comes to the mind of a lot of people, and they feel like you're depriving yourself, or like this is some kind of punishment. But that's not true. This is something that we are happily doing.
Yeah, and to be honest, if someone is overweight,
Yeah.
their body has been actually saving all that extra fat for the day when, possible famine might come. There may not be enough food around, and so they can use their own body fat. But of course, I mean, maybe fortunately or unfortunately, in our modern sort of times, famine never comes. And so we have access, we forever have access to any amount of food we desire. And so we're never giving our body the chance to actually use its stored fat reserves, because that's the whole purpose. Our body keeps or holds on to fat so that when we have to go without food one day,
Yeah.
our body has enough to feed on for days, in fact, for days. So I'm going to mention the extended fasting. Now, so far we've been talking about skipping a meal or 2 meals, which is what I'm doing at the moment. But back in, I think it was 2021, or maybe 2022, because I remember it was COVID lockdowns.
Yeah.
I decided to do extended fasting. I decided to go 3 days or longer if I could without food. There weren't many resources. Even like going back 3-4 years ago, there weren't resources online. There weren't any Facebook groups that could give me. So I joined like all the mainstream fasting groups. And when I mentioned I'm type 1 and looking to learn from other type 1s who've perhaps done a 3-day fast, I was told by all the admins, no, you can't. This is like taboo. You can't be. This is very dangerous. You can't post about that in my group. So I created my own group. I thought, well, there must be someone. There must be someone out there who's doing this, who's doing extended fasting. Then I went to the literature. I went to PubMed and started looking for articles why a type 1 shouldn't do extended fasting. Nupur, I couldn't find any studies or literature convincing me that fasting would be dangerous with type 1 diabetes. The only 2 points of concern were hypoglycemia. And I thought, well, hypoglycemia, but I can avoid that if I'm adjusting my insulin dose down. And the other one was, of course, DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, because if you're not taking enough insulin, diabetic ketoacidosis isn't a blood sugar problem. It's a problem of not enough insulin to take care of your bodily needs, right? Because insulin does a lot more than just regulate blood sugars. It has so many other functions. And so if you are not taking enough insulin, yes, your risk of ketoacidosis will be quite high, actually, significantly high. So I thought, well, I'm not planning on not taking insulin. Like, I'm still going to take my basal insulin. And if I have to, reduce it, my basal, I think at the time was 14 units, maybe 16. So if I adjust it down to 12 units or 10 units, that's still sufficient amount of insulin.
Correct.
I'm going to take my salt.
Yeah.
I'm going to need hydration, drink enough water, and go from there. And so I knew that those 2 danger points I could address. So I went ahead and I fasted for 90 days, which is, I think, like around 4 days or something. So, no, sorry, 90 hours, not days. 90 hours, which is about 4 days. Someone can do the math here. So I wrote a blog about it on my website, created my group, and then I thought, well, this is going really well. And I wonder if I can do a 100-hour fast just to break my own record. which is roughly 5 days of fasting. And just at that time, Dr. Ian Lake from the UK, he's a GP. So he's a medical doctor. He has type 1 diabetes. He was doing a study with a group of participants who were going to run or walk
Yeah.
every single day for 5 days, completely fasted. So no food at all for 5 days. Out of the 8 participants, 3 of them were type 1, or 3 of them were going to be type 1. And then because of the COVID lockdowns, one of them couldn't join. So it ended up being him, the type 1, and one other person. They were working on it. There was a lot of noise on social media about it. And I thought, if Dr. Ian Lake is actually spearheading this project, then it can definitely be done. I fasted for 100 hours. Again, the blog is on my website. You can check it out. I didn't know what I was doing, but I kept myself safe.
Yeah.
I took corrective doses of insulin to bring my blood sugar back to normal levels. I took glucose tabs whenever I had lows. And, look, diabetes is always a balancing act. You're constantly balancing your blood sugars. If they're high, okay, you're taking a tiny bit of the insulin to bring it back down again. If they're low, you're taking a tiny bit of glucose, like a quarter of a bite, to bring it back up. It's a constant balancing act.
True.
And it's the same during a fast. Yes, your insulin dose goes down. Both your basal insulin dose might go down if you're on a multi-day fast, especially from the second day onwards. You'll notice that if you usually take 16 units, you're just only going to need about maybe 10 units of your basal, right? So again, you're adjusting your insulin, but you're also correcting the few bumps here and there that you might have. You definitely will still have some bumps here and there.
Yeah,
Correct
for
them
sure.
with correct them with your rapid acting insulin, and if you have a little bit of a low, correct it with glucose tab and fast on.
Amazing, and congratulations. That is intense. 100 hours and 5 days. That's really something. I'm definitely going to go and check out your blog of your experience, because while you were talking, it came to my mind that I must ask Nairi if she had to reduce her basal, and that indeed was the experience that you had. And I also remember Dr. Ian Lake, this really blowing up on social media a few years ago. Really exciting, amazing. And what's even better is that he himself is type 1 diabetic, and there's really nothing dangerous about it. You also looked into PubMed, and you looked at the concerns that might be there, but that really, there's nothing that stops us. We can do intermittent fasting, 1 day fasting, 5 day fasting, like Nairi has done. I'm also aware we're almost at time, so I'm quickly going to check with our viewers if they have any more questions that they would like to leave in the comments, or any thoughts, or is anyone planning to try fasting now? Tell us what you think. And in the meanwhile, Nairi, if you have any sort of tips or sort of last thoughts for people that want to start fasting, and anything they should be careful of, any kind of do's and don'ts, something that they should definitely, blood sugar monitoring is very important. You also mentioned hydration and salts, so I think that covers really a lot of it.
Yeah, I'll cover the tips, Nupur, but something else came to mind. And remind me, we'll go there if we still have time. It's about when people say your muscle is going to be wasted away if you go on a multi-day fast. So again, that's not entirely accurate either. But we'll cover that if we have time. Okay, so my tips. If you're not eating for the entire day, obviously you're not taking your bolus insulin. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the easiest part. You are not taking your bolus insulin.
Good.
I would say if your basal insulin dose is correct, most probably for the first 24 hours,
Yeah.
you're not going to need any adjustments if
Correct.
your basal dose is correct. Now, mine is, so what I do is I've worked my fat insulin, the insulin to cover fat, the fat sort of the blood sugar rise from fat into
Right.
my basal because I'm on a pump. And so my specific context is a little bit different. My basal is really needs adjusting from day one if I'm going on a multi-day fast, because my basal insulin is set a little bit high to also cover, because I'm not taking regular insulin, right? So to also cover the fat in my diet, right? So, but generally for the first 24 hours, you may not need to do anything other than drink water, um, hydrate yourself well, add salt to your water. And by salt, I don't mean the refined sodium that you get in large packs for like literally pennies. No,
Yeah.
just buy good quality, be it Himalayan salt, sea salt, whatever, just unrefined. Why? Because unrefined natural salt contains all the other minerals that your body may also need, right? It's not refined.
Right.
They haven't thrown away the manganese and the potassium from it and just kept the sodium part. You want full, natural, healthy salts. Um, and probably you won't need to do any adjustments. But from day 2, you are going to actively think about, reducing your basal insulin dose by 30%. It's all a trial and error. But keep yourself safe by reminding yourself that the goal is not to eliminate insulin.
Yeah.
You need to take your insulin. Yes, adjust the dose down, but you still need to take your insulin, because without insulin, now you're going to fall into ketoacidosis. Number 2 to remember is that if you wear a CGM, in fact, if you're not 100% confident and you don't know what you're doing, don't do it unless you wear a CGM. That's what I usually would say, because I don't know if I personally would have done it without my CGM.
True.
Unless, of course, I set my alarm to wake up every hour to check my blood sugars. It's important to check your blood sugars throughout the fast, and keep them in a tight range, in a narrow range. Number 3, treat the high with a tiny bit of rapid-acting insulin, and treat the lows with a tiny bit of glucose. Can you exercise while you're fasting? It depends on the exercise. If you're going to go for an hour's walk, be prepared for a drop, because you will drop. I mean, we know that walking is a good way to burn off sugars, right? Blood glucose levels. So if you're going to do something like that, then take your glucose tabs with you, because you might actually need some sugar while you're walking if you've already taken your basal insulin. If you are wearing a pump, and I don't know how many of you are wearing a pump, but if you are wearing a pump, you can actually reduce your basal on your pump while you go on a walk. But yes, you can exercise while you're fasted. You can treat your highs and lows while you're fasted, and try it. I mean, look, it's a wonderful adventure. Do you know why it's an adventure? Because no two fasts are alike, right? So when people ask mountain climbers, well, okay, so you already climbed whatever mountain, now you're going to climb Kilimanjaro. I mean, why? You've already done it once. But they say, but that's a different adventure. It's a different environment. So fasting is kind of an adventure, because no two fasts are alike. Even my 90-hour fast and 100-hour fast were not alike. I experienced completely different things, like completely different experiences. So again, document everything, because that's what I did. I kept taking like screenshots of my blood sugars, writing notes, because you learn from your notes. You'll notice certain patterns, for example, right? Keep yourself safe. Safety is very, very important. If you're not feeling well, you are going to have ketones, by the way. And if you
Yeah.
check your ketones, if you have this fear of ketones because of ketoacidosis, you
Mm.
will have ketones while you are fasting, and that's completely natural as long as you have sufficient amount of insulin, you're well hydrated, and you're taking your electrolytes, or generally for me, it's just salt basically is what I need during a fast. But yeah, if you use sachets of electrolytes, go ahead and use those as long as they're not sweetened with sugar. But yeah, keep yourself safe. And if you're really feeling unwell, break the fast. Just
Yep.
break the fast. It's not
Do it
supposed to
another
be
day.
punishment. You're not feeling well. You're feeling like you're going to vomit, and you're unwell. You're miserable. Just go ahead and eat.
Yeah, it's not a punishment. And that's such a great reminder about, the difference between ketoacidosis and nutritional ketosis. And a lot of people do get confused about the two. So you, like Nairi mentioned, you will have ketones, and ketones, somehow the word ketone seems to trigger a lot of people, and they panic and they get scared. But it's just a natural byproduct of the human body. Even non-diabetics have ketones. There's nothing wrong with having ketones in your body. It is natural, it is normal. It's And we all, of course, know what DKA is. It needs a lot of other variables to be a certain way for you to have DKA. So as long as your blood sugars are normal, you have insulin in your body, um, don't worry about DKA. You may be in nutritional ketosis, and that's not a dangerous thing. So I can see Ashlesha's message, and she says she hasn't tried it, but I think she might be considering trying fasting sometime. Ashlesha, keep us posted if you do try. And Krishnan, we will, I would request Nairi to drop in a link to her blog as well, where she's documented her 100-day fasting adventure that she explained is like is really like climbing a mountain, isn't it? And no two adventures are the same. So really love that sort of comparison. And I can also see your message, Geeta. You also plan to try fasting, and you'll keep yourself hydrated. That sounds like a wonderful plan. It's so hot here now in many parts of India. There's a heat wave, and it's extremely hot. So having enough water, enough electrolytes, enough salts, very, very important to do that. So yeah, I think with that, thank you once again, Nairi, for taking out the time and doing this with us on a Sunday. Really appreciate you coming in and sharing your experience. And I think this is so inspiring. 47 years of type 1 diabetes, no neuropathy. Nothing. You're absolutely, I would have never guessed how long you've had T1. You look strong, you look fit, you have beautiful skin. And I think that's really, for everybody watching, whether you're a parent of a child with type 1 diabetes, or you're somebody with type 2. I know we have friends with type 2 in the comments as well. Take charge of your health, and don't worry. Like Nairi mentioned, even if you fall off the wagon and something's not going as per plan, take some time off and get back on your plan once again. So, yeah. So, with that, have a wonderful Sunday, everyone, and stay tuned next Sunday for another workshop. Thank you, Nairi.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.